So these are going to be the top decks to climb to Legend, and all of the decks will be in the link below. It is the High Present tier list page, which together with a bunch of GMs, high Legend players, and content creators such as myself, we made the best tier list there is. So the first deck on this list is going to be Naga Demon Hunter, and it should not really come as a surprise. It is the highest win rate deck in the game as of the making of this video. It's fairly simple to play, but has a nice little skill cap where you can maximize damage with cards like the Dread Prison Glaive, and it's kinda cheap in the sense that the legendaries aren't 100% necessary other than Kurtrus. They're very good, but if you want to play this as just a very aggressive style, you can take out some of the other ones and maybe throw in like a Battle Fiend or something if you're playing on a budget. Mulligans for the deck are going to be the Sigil of Alacrity, Vicious Slither Spear, Battlesworn Vanguard, Multi-Strike, especially if you have the Vanguard and or the Fossil in hand, and then the Fossil, and then if you're into something control like Warrior, Carria and Kurtrus are good closers that can help you compete in the late game. So the next deck on the list is going to be Control Warrior, and just want to note that there are three main ways you can build this deck. The version with direct damage like Alexstrasza and Tidal Revenant, you can run the charge version with the, Captain Galvangar, or however you say his name, or you can run the Kazakhstan version, all of which are good. This is just the one that we personally recommend and the one that is doing the best currently. Basically, the mulligans for this deck are From the Depths. Basically, you can get rid of everything else. You can keep some armor and removal and card draw, obviously, but From the Depths is the main thing. And if you're into aggro, Frozen Buckler and Shield Shatter. And I just want to say, this is not a deck you're going to jump into and immediately do well with. This is a deck that is control and kind of high skill cap. So it'll take you 5, 10, maybe even 20 games to really get the hang of it. But once you do, you'll win most of your games. Next on the list is going to be Buff Paladin. Generally speaking, the idea of this deck is very simple. You want to buff the minions in your hand or on the board, and then win the game with them. And a lot of the times your main closer will be Mr. Smite or Lightforged Cariel, and then obviously you have a couple of other late game cards to bring you into the game if you run out of resources, like Varian and the Leviathan. So overall, the mulligans of the deck are basically just gonna be 1 and 2 drops, as well as the Alliance Bannerman and the Mooncatcher if you want. And from that, you just want to try to snowball the board, whether it be with the Prismatic Jewel Kit and Divine Shields, or the Seafloor Savior to try to get the Sunken Mooncatcher to put 2 Divine Shield minions on the board with 1 card, or you can just play for normal tempo, all of which are good with Paladin. It's a very straightforward deck, probably the simplest one on here, but by far the most expensive. So I would recommend the one after this if you like this style of play. And the one after that one is just normal Mech Paladin, which runs fairly similarly to Buff Paladin. I think its absolute ceiling is a little bit lower, but it's a little bit more consistent because you have the Radar Detector as well as the Stonehearth Vindicator to make sure you always have cards in hand. You still have some decent hand pump with the Prismatic Jewel Kit as well as Alliance Bannerman. It's just not nearly as expensive, and it has slightly worse late game, but overall, still very, very good. Would actually recommend this one more personally, but Buff Paladin does have a slightly higher win rate. Maybe it's all the legendaries, maybe Hearthstone's pay to win, but honestly, both decks are perfectly fine. So the next deck on this list is going to be Murloc Shaman, and the only issue I really have with this deck is the fact that it lacks consistency a little bit. Sometimes you can flood the board and then just not get the good pumps you need. Other times you can run out of resources because you don't get Gorlock Ravager, but I'm underselling this deck. It still has a very strong win rate, and it can absolutely snowball out of control and beat almost any deck in the game if you have a good starting hand. So it's got really high highs and then really low lows. So if you're okay with that and you want to play an aggro deck, I think this is the second best aggro deck in the game, only behind Naga Demon Hunter. And if you like Murlocs and Shaman and all that, this would be a great deck for you if you don't want to play Naga Demon Hunter. So the second to last deck on this list is going to be Jackpot Rogue, and the only reason why it's this low on the list is for the same reason Murloc Shaman was on the bottom of the list, and that is because of the lack of consistency. Basically, we've all been there, right? When the Rogue has hit the absolute nuts, jackpot into a free Wild Paw Knoll turn 2, then they coin out the Trickster turn 3 and do something absolutely ridiculous. Like, yes, that happens, and it kind of happens a lot, but it also means that if they don't get those power plays, if you look at the rest of the deck, there isn't really that much going on for Rogue. So it can sometimes get super high highs and super low lows, just like Murloc Shaman. And there is another build of the deck that runs the Asharan Vessel, which I personally like a little bit more because I think it's a little bit more consistent. But if you want to run the version with Contraband Stash, you can as well. It's a little more fun, and again has higher highs, which could just be fun if you're playing Hearthstone for more fun and a little bit less like consistency and grinding. So the last deck on this list is going to be Curse Warlock. And full disclosure, this is not actually on the Hype Horizon website. It is a deck that I'm putting on here personally because I hit Legend with it. And I used to run a version with the Commander Ulthok, and in some instances he is very good. Like in a control matchup, you give him a ton of curses, the game drags on a long time, then you play the Commander, and you can shut them out of the game. However, there are a lot of times when he's actually a dead draw, and it's better to have the Gold Share Null, which is what I put in. Also, if you're missing any of the legendaries, Gold Share Null and the Mortal Coil are fine replacements. The only legendary I think that is like absolutely necessary is the Dreadlich Tamsin, and Gigafin's replacement is actually Twisting Nether, so you have another big removal if, again, you want to play this deck on a budget. Overall, this deck is really, really fun. It is my favorite deck of the expansion, and I went 12-3 with it, which is pretty good. It's not a deck you can just jump in and immediately do well with, however, especially because of life taps. Sometimes you draw too many cards and your hand is full on turns where you want to play something like Tamsin. Sometimes you take a little bit too much damage by life tapping and can die to aggro decks. So you need to kind of learn your limits, but you can make people overdraw their cards with the curses and burn cards in their hand with Emulate, which basically means control matchups are a breeze, and then you also have a ton of healing and early game removal to make aggro decks at least winnable. So overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, link below is the link to the Hype Horizon tier list website with all the codes already there, with a brief description of the decks as well as what's going on in the meta. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.